Hi and welcome to this calculation exercise. Today we will create a portfolio with no risk. So prior to watching this video I recommend you to see Portfolio Theory 1, and now you can please pause the video to read the question. Hi and welcome back for a new calculation exercise for Finance 1. As you know, we are now supposed to find the portfolio that has no risk at all. And as Iñaki has shown you during the lectures, if we have two stocks, let's call them stock 1 and A, that has a perfectly negative correlation, hence a correlation of -1, we can always find weights of stock 1 and 2 that gives us 0 standard deviation or 0 risk. And now this exercise is to find these weights here that yields us that portfolio. To that we need this formula for the portfolio variance, and we have also write down the numbers that we know. So the standard deviation of stock 1 is 23%, the standard deviation of stock 2 is 16%, the correlation is -1, and we know that the variance standard deviation should be equal to 0. But we can already now conclude that if the standard deviation, that is the square root of the variance, should be 0, then also the variance needs to be 0. So we can start by writing that up. So 0 is equal to x1 squared times the variance of 1 plus x2 squared times the variance of 2 plus 2 times x1, which is the weight of 1, times the standard deviation of 1 times the correlation, which is -1, you can do like that, times the standard deviation of 2 times the weight of 2, or stock 2. But now this can be simplified a bit, so we can conclude that it is the weight of 1 squared times the variance of 1 plus the weight of 2 squared times the variance of 2 minus, since we have -1 here, 2 times the weight of 1 times the standard deviation of 1 times the standard deviation of 2 times the weight of 2. Now this still looks a bit messy, but if we can recall from mathematics, we had that a minus b squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2 times a times b. And now this might look a bit familiar with that expression. And in fact, if we say that a is equal to x, the weight of 1 times the standard deviation of 1, and if we say that b is equal to the weight of 2 times the standard deviation of 2, in fact we get this exact result. But if it can be done in that way, then it can also be done in another way around. So we can just write this in a simpler manner with the help of the brackets. So we can say that this is equal to x1 times the standard deviation of 1 minus x2 times the standard deviation of 2 raised to the power of 2. And now it might look a bit simpler. So we know that this expression should be 0, and the only way for this to be 0 is if this here is 0. So we can basically just take away the square, or we can take the square root, because the square root of 0 is 0, so that doesn't matter. So then 0 is equal to x1 times the standard deviation of 1 minus x2 times the standard deviation of 2. If we want to now, we can first of all simplify it a bit, so we only have one unknown term. And this can be done by, first of all, inserting the numbers for the standard deviations here, and also conclude that we will invest 100% in total. So what we does not invest in asset 1 will be invested in asset 2. So the weight of asset 2 is 1 minus the weight of asset A. So this is x1 times 23% or 0.23 minus 1 minus x1 times 0.16. And again, this is equal to 0. Now we can multiply 0.16 in here and here. So we get 0 is equal to x1 times 0.23 minus 0.16 times 1, which is 0.16. Minus minus becomes plus. Plus x1 times 0.16. And now to get all the x's on one side, we can just add 0.16 to both sides. So we have that 0.16 is equal to x1 times 0.23 plus x1 times 0.16. Now we want to add all the x's, so we can say that this is the same as x1 times 0.23 plus 0.16. So if I continue here, we have that 0.16 is equal to x1 times 0.23 plus 0.16, which is 0.39. This yields that if we divide by 0.39 on both sides, we have that x1 is equal to, I need to use the calculator, 0.16 divided by 0.39, which is 0.41025, etc. And as I told you before, if we invest approximately 41% in asset 1, the rest, hence 59%, need to be invested in asset 2. So x2 is 1 minus x1, which is approximately 59%, so 0.59. And now you can, of course, test calculate and see that it is indeed yields a 0 standard deviation. So yes, now we're done for today. Thank you very much.